Welcome to the Nav People's Jet 101 Knowledge Hub. First, I'm going to start with an apology. This isn't one of our usual live recordings. I may have not pressed the record button during the live performance last week. This is just going to be just a normal sort of recording with no interactions or anything like that. So if you have any questions at all about anything that's covered on this webinar, then please feel free to send us an email at ask@thenavpeople.co.uk. It's a free of charge service, and we will do our absolute best in replying to any nav or jet related queries. Okay, so in the next hour, I'm going to be talking to you guys about designing and running jet reports, specifically from a nav database. How I'm going to do that is I'm just going to give you guys a quick introduction on Jet, you know, why it was created in the first place, where it is now, as well as a brief introduction to all the ribbons and all the options that you have on the ribbon and the different design tools and stuff like that. And then I'll dive straight into creating a nice, simple list. We'll talk about introducing to some of the Jet functionality and stuff like that as part of that. We're going to add some filters, some sorting, then start to add in some great Excel formatting based on the Jet report, which is obviously the nav data. So just to show you how quickly you can create a very simple but nice looking report. Then we'll move on to using the report wizard, where we're going to create a bit more of a complicated customer report, including some bits of information from additional tables, and just show you using the skills that we've taught, that I would have shown you in the creating a simple list. You can then edit the report wizard functionality after you've completed that process to really sort of enhance that functionality. Okay then, well, so what I'm first of all going to do is I'm just going to pop over to my virtual machine and show you Jet. So this is Jet. In essence, it is an Excel add-in. So it sits inside Excel. It was specifically designed for nav. Getting information out of nav in terms of its reports or export information out of Excel used to be quite difficult. The nav reports themselves are, very inflexible. If any end user wanted to have any customizations made to those reports, they had to speak to a company like us as a reseller, and we have to get developer involved to creating or changing any of those reports. So for that, for us, it's time, and for our end users, money. So Jet came along, and we as soon as we were partnered with them, we've not sold a nav system without it, because of its flexibility in terms of being able to create reports and change reports and just draw the information out of nav into a nice familiar environment. Most people are leaving school nowadays with some great Excel skills because that's what they get taught at school. Therefore, having the nav data in that kind of environment is perfect. Obviously, since then, Jet has then expanded it out so you can basically access any information that's being held in a SQL database. So there's quite a few different options for you in terms of being able to connect to a variety of different data sources, and you can connect from multiple data sources and have all of that information coming to one Jet report. So you can do some really nice consolidation of data from lots of variety of different databases. All righty then. So moving on to the ribbon. Here we have the Jet ribbon. It's split out into a nice few different sections, but the first one on here on the left-hand side where it says modes. There are two modes basically that Jet can be in. It can either be in design mode or it can be in report mode. Obviously, if you're set up as a designer on your Jet license, it will enable you to put a report into design mode, and then that is where you will want to make all of your changes that you make to your report in design mode. When you decide that just you want to see what the report looks like, or you finish making those changes, you can then press report. That will then run the reports. That's the bit where it goes to the nav database, grabs all the data, and then displays it based on the criteria that you've put in the design function. Refresh, it doesn't matter which mode you press refresh in, so you can either be in design mode or you can be in report mode, but what that will do is it goes back to nav, grabs all the data and brings it back into the report. When that's finished, it will always be in report mode. Okay, so again, it doesn't matter which mode that you're in when you press the button, but it will always finish in report mode. The next section where it says design tools are a great way, depending on what kind of report you want out of nav or the sort of data or how you want it to be displayed, will depend on what design tool you would use. Sadly, we will not have enough time to go through them all, but I will show you the browser, because that's a great way of very quickly creating a nice list. The report wizard, so that will be where we very quickly create a nice basis of a report with some formatting and stuff like that to be able to add bits and pieces onto it that we like. And we've got this JFX, which is the Jet Functions buttons, which are here at the top, split into 4. All right, and I will explain those as we go along. I'll explain the others that we're not going to have a chance to go through, but we've got the table builder. The table builder is a great way if you want to be able to pull a lot of information out of nav, put it into an Excel document, and then point a pivot table at it. Really great for that. And then snippets. Snippets are a great way of being able to save a group of cells that you use repeatedly. So instead of going back to an old report and copying and pasting something and bring it in, you can save it as a snippet and then just drag it in whenever you want to. The best thing about that is you don't even have to use that with Jet Functions inside it, so you can actually save a group of just Excel cells with just standard Excel functionality in them as a snippet and then just keep reusing it. The next section, we've got some nice report tools. You may or may not be aware, but when you run a report, Jet will allow you to drill down into that information. And in the setup, you can actually set it to go, either you're going to open up nav for me and take me to that record that you've got this information from, or you could display that information using, or Jet could display that information in a separate window for you. We love the fact that you can just press the button and it will take you to nav. You know, ooh, that figure looks slightly off. That might be, why is that figure like that? You can hit the drill down and it will then take you to the record inside of nav and goes, this is why we've come up with this figure. And you can look at that and go, oh, actually that's because of X, Y, and Z, that's fine. Or you can go, you know, or you can make some changes inside of nav and go, okay, yeah, that's right, this setup's missing and oh, this is what we need to do. You might need to journal some entries. But then as soon as you go back to Jet Report and hit refresh, that information will then be updated and the figures then should match with what you've got. The debug button in the middle is if you've got some error messages and stuff like that coming up, you can select a cell, hit the debug button, and it will just tell you what the error message is for that particular cell. So it's a great way to, if you've designed a report, just to quickly go through and go, oh, why have I got this error? And it will then tell you what the error message is, and then you can rectify it. We've then got the scheduler. Oh, the scheduler. Lots of our customers like this. It basically gives our end users the ability to be able to schedule a report and then email out. So you can even email it out as a Jet workbook or as an Excel workbook, PDF or a web document. So you can send them out as emails. You can schedule it to run daily, weekly, monthlies. You can pick what days of the week. It's, you know, what time it runs and stuff like that. You can even get it to use some of the information that's inside the Jet report to you know, as part of the criteria of who it gets sent to by using some of the Excel named ranges and stuff like that. So really great functionality. So yeah, most common thing we do is sales reports. So what was last week's sales? The Jet report will run then early on a Monday morning, emails itself out to the salespeople, and then when they rock up on the Monday morning, they've got this is what you did last week as a report. The next section where we've got settings, this just dictates, we've got the application settings, so any settings related to the Jet setup will be found in here. The data source settings, this is where the information is held in terms of how this particular data source is connecting. So this dictates is it a NAV database, is it a just a normal SQL database, and what type of connections. So here, for example, we can see that we're connected to a Dynamics NAV database 2013 or later, and we're using the SQL Server connection. So we're connecting directly to the SQL database. Bypassing any web services or anything like that, we are talking straight with the SQL Server, which means it's pretty quick. Okay, so you can see here, here's all the connection details. If you've got multiple data sources, they will be displayed here. So you can see here I've got nice 2 data sources here. And if it's connected to a NAV database, we've got the additional option here of the companies. So this will actually give you a drop-down list of all the companies that are inside your NAV database. In this example, I've only got one because it's a demo database, but you can see there that it will be displayed on all of them. So you can run these reports specifically for a company. Just as easily, you can actually create a jet report that will have multiple companies, the information be displayed for multiple companies in one report. And then we've got the usual help and about functionality as well. All right, well that was it. That was my brief introduction. What we're going to do is that we are going to quickly use the browser to create a nice simple list. So I'm going to select the browser. Now the first time you select this, it does take a little bit of time just for it to load up. It'll only do it the first time you load it. The reason being is that this is going to nav and creating a list of all of the tables and all the subsequent fields on those tables that are inside your nav database. Oh, hit it itself, that's okay. This will include any customizations that you've had. So if you've got customized tables, customized fields, anything like that, that will be shown instantly in the browser with no additional functionality. So if you're worried about that Jet won't be able to see your customized fields and stuff like that, don't worry about it. If it's inside Nav, Jet will be able to see it. Okay, so just to explain the browser a bit. So yeah, down here on the left-hand side, here's a list of all the tables that are inside your Nav database. And yes, there are quite a few. And on the right-hand side, we'll display the fields that are based on a table. So for example, if I just press C, go down to all my C tables, I'm just going to find the customer tables. There's the customer table. So these are all the fields now that are on the customer table. Okay, so there's quite a few in there. Now, we do realize there are a lot of tables inside Nav. So Jet has this wonderful functionality of being able to save favorites. So as you can see, I've got a little star next to customer. So if I select that one, it saves the customer table as one of my favorites. So I could do the same with like maybe the customer ledger entry, because that's one that we're going to be playing with later. I can also, if I pop down to the vendor table, I can save that one as a favorite, sorry. Same with the vendor ledger entries. So I've got nice 4 tables in there, at least saved as my favorites. You can save your favorites down to the field level. However, we find that most of the time it's just by filtering down by tables is narrows down what you can select, or narrows down your favorites that you selected. Okay. If you want to just display your favorites, there's a little favorites button here at the top. So once I press it, you can see there I've just got my favorite tables. The browser is the only place where you can define what your favorite tables are. However, in all the other design tools, it will display what your favorite tables are, but all the tables are nothing more than a couple clicks away. So even if you've decided you're going to use the report wizard to create a table, it will display your favorite tables, but then there's a little tick box to say, no, just display them all, and then you'll have all the tables in there. So, you don't have to worry about it of what stage you're going to be at. In all the design tools, you can either select your favorites or unselect favorites. A few bits of information up here at the top. Kronos UK Limited, that's the data source. There's the company. If I wanted to change it in here, it's going to bring through rows, and it's going to bring records of those values. Okay. Oh, sorry. You can either bring through records or you can bring values. So I'm just going to leave it as records. So I'm going to select the customer table, and the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring through the customer number. Okay, so I'm going to select the number field here, and then I'm just going to click and drag that into my Excel document. So I'm going to pop it into these cells here. And there we have it. There is the number field. Okay, so I'm just going to close this down now because I'm just going to explain what's gone on around this. Okay, so first thing is that there is a reason why I didn't pop it straight into cell A1, and if you really like starting your Excel documents in cell A1, Jet might upset you. Jet uses column A and row 1 for quite a lot of its Jet functionality. You should try not to put any Excel functionality in that. I have had some instances where I've put some Excel functionality into it and then it just takes Jet a longer time to put it back into design mode once you've then run the report. So just bear that in mind. The auto plus hide bit in here are two separate functions. You'll notice that whenever you create a Jet report, it will always put auto plus hide in A1. You can add additional functionality. You'll see some other functions that get added in there depending on what you've done. But the fact is that Jet will automatically run whatever's in a column and row 1. The hide bit hides the column and the row. So when I run the Jet report, column A and row 1 will be hidden. Okay. The reason it automatically does that is because here at the top here we've got two additional Jet functions here, which are just text that you type in, so you can chop and change them as much as you like. There's hide and there's fit. So what basically this does is that when you run the Jet report, because there's a hide in this top of this column, it will hide this entire column in the Jet report. All right. The fit functionality resizes the column for you. All right. More importantly, it's almost exactly like how you double click to resize it. So if I just start like this, if I double click, it automatically resizes it to the biggest value in that column. Well, the fit functionality will let the Jet functionality do that for you. So when you run a report, all of your column widths will be based on the biggest value that this is in that column. Therefore, you don't have to worry about the size of the columns or anything like that. It will just deal with that automatically for you. Okay, so now we're going to start introducing you to some Jet functions. All right, so there's two that are involved in this. The first one is what we refer to as an NL function. We know this is an NL function because you can actually see it in the Excel formula bar. There we go. So some of you will be looking at that going, oh, that looks remarkably like an Excel formula. Well, it is. It's Jet's own range of Excel formulas. So you can change the formulas directly in the Excel formula bar. We don't recommend that you do that initially to begin with because unlike Excel, it doesn't give you the little help functionality in terms of being able to tell you, well, you need to put this kind of field, this is what information it wants next, in the next section of the Excel functionality. But instead, what you can do is you can press one of the Jet function buttons here at the top. Now, because there's a Jet function already in this particular cell, it does not matter which of these 4 buttons I press, it will open it up in NL mode. Okay, so even if I press the GL function there, it opens it up in NL mode. If I've got a blank cell selected, then it matters which button I press because it will automatically open it up in that whichever button you've pressed. To be fair, even if you press the wrong one, you can still change it inside the wizard by pressing the drop-down menu here at the top. So, this is an NL function, like I said. We refer to this as the nav link. So this creates a link to a table inside of nav. And there is. So the table that we're connecting to is the customer. All right. Isn't really surprising because that's what the table that we selected in the browser. The what bit is selected as rows. Now what that means is that this NL function is going to create us rows from the customer table. And that's it. Okay. You can see here how there's no filters applied, so it's going to literally bring through every single customer record in that table. and create a line for that information. All right. How it does that is that it actually inserts a new row underneath here. So it's a bit like right-clicking there, right-clicking on the number 8 and going insert new row. It will then populate that. This then function will then be, the NL function itself will actually duplicate itself down and it will display a different primary key based on the record that it's going to be creating that line for. All right, so NL function links to the table. This next one is an NF function. All right, see it up here. So I'm going to press one of the function wizard buttons and it will open it up. So we've got NF. An NF function will display a nav field. So this displays the field from your nav database. The first thing it asks for is a key. You can see there it says $E7. Well, I'm hoping some of you are recognizing that as a cell reference. It's an Excel cell reference. So the key is referring to $E7, which is, lo and behold, where my NL function is. So this NF function is looking at the NL function and going, I'm going to be pulling the information from the customer table. The field, called field, displays the field that we want to display. So it's displaying the number field. Okay. And that's all it does. That's all the NF function does. Just displaying the number field based on the NL function. You'll notice as well that it's got a $E7, which means it's locked to the column. So whatever happens to this NF function, it will always look at column E for the NL function. At this stage, it's not too worrisome. It's a nice simple report and it's just going to go down the things, and Excel will automatically change the cell references accordingly. However, when you start getting a report that creates rows and columns for you, then locking becomes really an important part of this. So I suggest you, whenever happens, if you've got a cell reference, it's locked accordingly. All right, every single time you do it. It'll get you into a nice, good set of practice ready for, you know, when you start creating some nice big reports. So there we go. So there's the NF function. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to quickly run the report just to show you what, as it stands, what it's going to do. And there we go. So there are my rows from the customer table, and it will display the number. So here's my NF functions displaying the customer numbers. Nice and simple. All right. But as the report goes, that's not particularly great. So let's add some bits and pieces there. So what I'll do is I'll pop it back into design mode. It's very important you put it back in design mode. If you make any changes to it in report mode and then go, oh, nuts, I need to put it back into design mode, you're going to press design, you will lose all your changes that you've made. All right, as it pops it back into design mode. That's, sadly, there's no way around that. That's just Jet in terms of and the Excel integrations between the two. So I'm going to select the browser again because I actually want to bring through the name. So let me select the name and I'm going to drag this in. Now, this is the important bit, is I need to make sure that if I'm going to be dragging this in, I'm going to drag it in line with my NL function. There we go. So the system has automatically gone, or Jet's automatically gone. All right, yeah, so I'm creating an NF function for the name field, and here's the NL function that refers to the same table. Therefore, it doesn't need to create a new NL function. It will use that one. Okay, so if I just close that down, open up the function wizard button on the this NF function we just created. So there we go. The key is obviously $E7. That's not going to change. Okay, except the field's changed because now we're just displaying the name field. So if I hit the drop-down menu, you can see is a list of all the fields that are on the customer table. If this cell reference is incorrect, all right, and it's not got this value in it, you wouldn't even be able to select anything from here. It wouldn't even give you the drop-down menu option. The reason being is that it's not going to display all the fields from nav. because there's so many of them and some of them are all named the same, it has to know what table you're connected to first. Okay, so what I'm doing is I'm just going to quickly run it now. Let's see what we get. And there we go. There's a number of names. So these numbers and names will always match. So that is the customer number for that customer. Okay. Pop back in design mode. I'm going to open up the browser again. The browser will also allow you to multiple select fields. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you to the balance LCY and the balance due LCY. So I'm going to select balance LCY. I'm going to press and hold the control key and then press balance due LCY. So I've now got the two selected. All right. So what I'm doing is if I now drag that over again, so it's in line with my NL function, and drop it in there, it will then put them both in. It will put them in order that I selected them. So in theory, I could have actually gone straight to the customer table and multiple select number, name, balance, balance due, dragged them all in at the same time, closed it down, hit run, and there's a list of all my customers and their balances. Nice and quick. Depending on your size, your database and the amount of data it's going to be pulling through will obviously affect the speed of the report. My demo database is pretty small in comparison to most, but you can see here it didn't even register a second in the report time. Okay, so as a report, it's starting to take shape. It's giving me a list of the customers and their balances. However, I'm not really worried about the customers with zero balances, so I want to filter those out. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to pop it back into design mode, and I'm going to apply a filter. You'll always, 99% of the time you will apply filters to the NL functions. Okay, it's nice and quick, it's nice and efficient because this is the function that goes to nav and pulls the information back. Therefore, at that stage you want to filter the information so the report will run even faster. So let's open up the NL function wizard. And here at the bottom, I'm going to add in my first filter. So I actually want to add in a filter to say, I only want you to show or bring through a row from a customer if the balance field, so the balance LCY field, is not equal to 0. And I'm going to put that in double speech marks. Okay. So therefore, this will only bring me through customers that have got a balance not equal to 0. Okay. Now, before I press OK, you'll notice here I've got this customer record coming through with a balance of 0. All right. It will always bring through the first example, the first record that it finds with the criteria that you've set. So if I press OK, the first customer it finds, changes because I've applied that filter to it. So this is the first customer it finds in the table that has a balance not equal to 0. This is quite good or quite useful when you're building a report because obviously if all this information is blank, so there's nothing coming through, you know you've applied a filter or you're looking at a table that's got no records in it. Okay, so it's a nice way of being able to see that. So I now press report. There we go. Nice simple list just showing me customers and how much money they owe me. J will also allow you to change the sorting as well. So if you wanted to sort it by sort it by field. If I select the balance LCY field, I'm going to press the little icon button next to it. You'll notice the arrow is now pointing up and it's put a plus sign just in front of balance. So this will now sort the balance LCY field in ascending order. If I press it again, it puts a minus sign in front of it. That will be in descending order. And if I click it again, it turns it back off again. So I want it in descending order because I want the biggest balance at the top. And I'm going to press OK. You'll notice that the sorting doesn't take effect. Okay, unlike filters, that will change the example record that it brings through. Sorting won't. Reason being is that it needs to bring through all the information first before it can sort it all. All right, so it's quite logical. So if I now put that into report mode, there's a list of my customers, biggest balance at the top, smallest balance at the bottom. Looking pretty good. So as I mentioned earlier, Jet and Excel you can combine them really quite effectively. As an example, you can actually put Jet functions inside of Excel formulas. You can't do it the other way around, just as a note. You can't put Excel formulas inside of Jet functions. It doesn't work that way, sadly. But what that basically does is that you can then start creating some really quite very flexible functional reports that are using both Excel and Jet functions to create some very nice and complicated looking reports, which can really provide your companies with a huge amount of information and a huge amount of data. Okay. So just as an example, I can sit here and I can change some of the formatting. The best way I always try and remember is that Jet deals with data, Excel deals with formatting. So using Excel, I can, make those bold. I might decide that I actually want to put some, let's put some border down there at the bottom for it. I'm going to change the formatting of the balance fields to be a number. I want to use to two decimal places. I want it to be red with the negative icons just so I can easily spot the negative things coming through. Yeah. You can even add in a bit of conditional formatting in there, so I can go, well, actually I want the biggest values to be red and the smaller values to be white. So now when I run the report, Jet will replicate the conditional formatting or any of the formatting set on those particular lines. So there we go. A really nice, simple list created very quickly. Or if I was talking less and just did it, it'll be very quick. So, moving swiftly on. Okay, let's take a look at the report wizard. So let's I'm just going to press the report wizard button. Now, the first thing you'll notice that when it runs the report wizard is that it opens up a new Excel document. The reason being is that the report wizard you can only run on an existing on a new document. You can't run it on an existing Jet report. Okay. The stuff it does will overwrite anything that's on there. So whenever you press the report wizard button, it opens up a new Excel document. Okay. So if I open up this one, you can see here I've just got my favorite tables that I selected from the browser. Again, I've got little tick boxes underneath it, so if I actually wanted to view all the tables, I just have to untick it and there's all my tables. Okay, so for the moment I'm just going to select that because I actually want the customer table again. And then I'm going to press next. Note that it's on the left-hand side. I've had a lot of people, during my training sessions come to me and go, oh, I've just hit finish because it's on the right-hand side. It's just instinctive to go to the right-hand side, but the next and back buttons are on here on the left-hand side. So we're going to press next. Here we've got a list of all the fields that are on the customer table, exactly the same way. So I'm actually going to select number, name, balance, and balance due. I'm also going to bring through the salesperson code. So I've selected them in a reasonable order, but you can actually drag them around. So if I actually want the salesperson code to be after the name, all I have to do is to drag that around. There we go. So now I've got number, name, salesperson code, balance, LCY, balance due, LCY. You can, of course, press the little tick flag here at the tick box here at the top, and it will select all the fields. But that's quite a lot of information because the customer table is quite relatively big. So I'm going to press next to move on to the next stage. Okay, so grouping is next. What this does is it will allow you to be able to group by any of the fields that you've currently got displayed in the previous step. What that will do is, and a great example of this is if you've got an item report and you decide actually I want to group everything by the vendor number. Yeah, so the vendor number is stored on the item table. So you basically it will basically give you a vendor record and then list all the items that are associated with that vendor underneath it. And then it will give you the next vendor record. Here's all their items, and so on and so on. So it's a really great functionality in terms of being able to do that. All that, though, will only be based on one table of information, so it will only be based on the item table. In this case, I don't want to group it by anything because I'm going to do things slightly differently on this particular report. So I'm going to leave grouping blank. Sorting. Again, obviously I can change the sorting, so I could do, let's do it by balance due this time in descending order. So it'll give me my, the customer with the biggest balance due right at the top of the list. Because let's say I'm just going to create a list of who I'm going to phone in what order to chase for the money. So yeah, balance due in descending order. Next. The report wizard will also allow you to create a totals at the bottom. So I can have let's have a total balance due. So that will give me a total at the bottom of this is how much money in total all your customers owe you together. Next. So you can apply some filters. So again, I'm just going to do, I only want to show the fields, filter by, I want to show the ones that owe me money. So the balance LCY field is not equal to 0. I'm just going to untick this. I'll explain this in a second. Stuff to note is that I have not put speech marks around this one, which is different to the function wizard, but you're not going to put any speech marks in it. If you do put speech marks around it, it will put an extra set of speech marks around it when it completes the wizard, and it will just throw up an error. I also want to be able to run this report for a specific customer. So I actually want to be able to filter by the customer number. However, I'm going to leave the value as a star. That's an asterisk in there, so Shift 8 on your keyboard. And what that does is that just tells me that I'm going to filter by everything. Jet does not like blank filters. So if you're going to be filtering by anything and you leave something blank, it will throw up an error to say empty filter not allowed. All right. So if you want to not filter by anything and just have a value in there, you want to put a star in there. This tick flag underneath where it says set at report runtime, that will give the viewer or whoever's going to refresh this report the ability to change the customer number if they wanted to. So a little window will pop up at the beginning of the report being like, do you want to run this for a particular customer? If you leave it as a star and press run, it will then run it for every customer. All right, so it gives you that flexibility. Really quite nice. So I'm going to leave that at set at report runtime, and then I'm going to press next. We've got the last few questions. We've got the top tick flag, which is prepare the report for use by report viewers. I've never had a need to untick that, so I generally always leave it ticked. Add basic Excel formatting to the report. Yes, thank you. Freeze panes is probably one of the most noticeable things, which is quite nice when you're scrolling down and you've already got freeze panes in there all set for you. That's nice. The bottom one where it says outline the groups in the report using Excel's data grouping feature. If I did have grouping set up as part of the report wizard function, I can hit that and it will then do the Excel functionality around the rows on the side here, which will allow me to group, and so I can collapse and expand all the groups. So that's quite nice. And then I'm going to press finish. Okay, so there's some information that's coming through. So let's run the report. Oh look, here's my little options window, which allows me to change the customer number. So I can hit the drill down menu here. Here's a list of all the customer numbers. Okay, so I can actually select it for a particular customer if I wanted to, and then I'm going to hit run. Ta-da! Okay, so obviously it's the same information as we had before, but we used the report wizard to be able to do that. So what that's done is actually, if I pop back into design mode, you'll notice that it has created me an option sheet. Sadly, I'm not going to have go through time, or not have enough time to go through adding stuff to the option sheet, but you can do. we definitely do cover this in our free Jet Report 101 sessions that we do here at Newbury and in our Manchester office. So you can find all those details on the website. So I'm going to pop this back in over here. I'm just going to change some of the formatting of this. I'm going to make those bold. I'm actually going to make them slightly bigger. And then I'm going to just, well, I'm actually just going to change these just to a currency for the moment. So there we go. Now, again, all this information is based on one table. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to start pulling in some bits of information from other tables. Okay. The first one we're going to do is I actually want the salesperson name. The salesperson name is a piece of data that's not held on the customer table, but the salesperson code is. So therefore, if I know that the salesperson code is stored on here, and I know that on the salesperson table that the code is stored there, I can create a relationship between the two. So to do that, I'm going to pop that in design mode. I'm actually going to insert a new column here because I'm going to place it in afterwards. Give it a nice title, salesperson, if I can type today, salesperson name. And I'm going to create a new Jet function below. Now, as part of this, because this function is going to be going to a new table inside of Nav, I need to create an NL function because I'm going to create a link to a new table. The what bit is I'm actually going to be selecting the first record because what I wanted to do is I wanted to bring it through the first record it finds from a table. So I'm going to unselect favorites because that information is stored on the salesperson/purchaser table. The field, which in the previous NL function was blank, this will display the field. So the NL function has the ability to not just create a link to a new table, but also do an NF function all combined into one. Because no NF functions are going to refer to this, I can actually put this in. So I'm going to pop this in here. So there you go. I want to display the name in this field. And now I need to apply the filter. So the filter is going to be filtered by the code, okay, which is the salesperson code. Because we're on the table, so this code will be the salesperson. I then want to filter this by the value that's in the cell next to it. So I can actually click on here, and it gives me that cell reference. By pressing F4, it cycles through the locking combinations just like you can do in Excel. So that will say then $I6. So I now know that this is going to bring me through the first record it finds, and it will display the name where the code equals the same as what's in the cell next to it, in this case PS. I can also hit the evaluate function here at the top, and you can see here where it says Peter Sado as a result. If there's an error, it will tell you. Okay, so there's invalid field name. Right, so it tells you what the issue is. So if I flop that back, I know there's not a problem because there's no red text in there. And Peter Sado, well, if the salesperson code is PS, Peter Sado seems a legitimate answer. So I'm going to hit OK. And there's the example it brings through. I'm just going to type in fit here in the top because I want to resize it. Well, now when I run the report, you'll notice that the salesperson name will now change depending on what's on the cell next to it. Okay, so JR, John Roberts. Perfect. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to actually, think about it, I don't need the salesperson code anymore, so I'm actually going to hide it. I can't delete it because I need to know what the code is, but I can hide that information from the viewer. So now when I run the report, the salesperson code is not displayed. The information is still there, and a viewer can technically unhide it if they really want to, but they generally don't have to. It's also worth to note that you don't want to be putting any sort of confidential information in any of the hidden stuff on an Excel report. If you don't want the viewer to be able to see that information, then you'll have to find a different way of being able to do it. But it's also worth to note that Jet will inherit the nav permissions. So if a viewer in Jet does not have the relevant permissions inside of Nav to be viewing some certain information and some certain data, and they're running and they're trying to refresh the report, it will actually throw up an error to say Dynamics NAV has returned the following error. You don't have permission to read this table. Therefore, you don't have to add in any additional functionality or any additional permissions inside of Jet. It will take those nav permissions. So what I'm going to do now is I actually want to add some more detail into this report, because what I actually wanted to do is I wanted to give you my customer record, so this customer information here, and then underneath it I want to give me a list of all the open invoices that are related and make up this particular balance. And then I wanted to create the next customer record. So what I'm actually doing is I'm actually going to delete this particular line for the grand total here at the moment. But what I'm going to do is very simply inside this Jet function here, the NL function that's giving me rows from the customer table, is I can put in here equals a number. So I'm going to put in equals 3. So if I press OK and now run this report, it gives me some nice gaps in between everything. So you'll notice that there's the first customer record, and then it's 3 rows down, 1, 2, 3, and then gives me the next record, 1, 2, 3, next record. So it's a nice way of being able to possibly give those spaces. What's even better is if I put some numbers in here to show you. Is that it duplicates what's in the rows equals 3. So if I put in here rows, where it says rows equals 3, it goes, well, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. It copies what's in between all the rows. So if I scroll down here to the bottom, there's my 3 and 4 below it. What this enables me to be able to do then is that I can then put an NL function within that, and that NL function will then be duplicated over and over again. So for example, I can then create an NL function which is going to create me rows from the customer ledger entry table, and that function will then be duplicated for each customer record. Now I realize there's no filters applied to this, so this will literally give me all of my customer ledger entries every single time it's repeated, which I will be adding a filter later on. So let's create an NF function here because I want to display some fields from the customer ledger entry table. So I'm going to press the NF function button here at the top. You can see here it says NF. First of all, it asks for a key. Well, the key is going to be my NL function. I'm going to press the F4 key, lock it to the column. And the field I want to display first is going to be, document type is usually a good one. Okay, and there we go. So the first record it finds is an invoice. So I'm going to create a whole load more of NF functions going across. So I'm going to copy these over. I do realize it says invoice over and over again, but now, just to make it a bit easier, I can actually go in and then just change the field it selects. So let's pick description maybe. Under this one we can put, document number would be good. So you know what the invoice number is. Due date will probably be a good one. Excel does its number formatting, so if I just select that and I'm just going to say format as a short date, and there we go, there's my date. I'm not actually going to put anything in that one. But in this particular field here, I want to display not the amount. I want to display the remaining amount. What that will do is that if you receive part payments for invoices and stuff like that, it will show you what's remaining on that particular invoice rather than its total amount. So there we go. Let's just change it to some currency. just for some formatting things, I'm actually going to, let's make that italic. I'm going to make sure all of those are left justified. And then these ones are all going to be right justified. So it makes it a bit obvious as to which ones are which. And then I need to apply my filter. Now, for this particular filter, if you're sit there and going, I actually want to filter this by the customer number, which is based on this cell here. Logic will dictate that I need to lock it in some way, shape or form, but I don't have to because Jet understands what I'm going to be doing. Therefore, if I don't put any locking around it, I hit OK and now run the report. It will automatically filter these down per customer. So all these invoices here are related to John Haddock Insurance Company. This invoice is New Concepts Furniture, all the way down. Okay, so I can see some nice bits of information. I can really start seeing some sort of detail. Some other filters that I would obviously want to apply to the customer ledger entry table is I only want to show the open entries. So where open equals true, hit OK, and now run the report. Because obviously if there's any closed entries inside of Nav, the balances won't match up. Okay, so hopefully if I select this, the balance should then match up with the top. There we go. And there we have it. Nice simple report, relatively quick, being able to pull information from multiple tables. Okay, so we've got it, an NL function here that's going to the customer table and creating, all the customers that owe me money. We've got, based on the salesperson code, we've got the salesperson name coming through from the salesperson purchase tables. That's just bringing through a single record from there, or a single field. And then based on that information, we've also got this one where it's creating rows from the customer ledger entry table for each individual customer. Sadly, that's all we have time for. We do go into this in a lot more detail on our JET 101 sessions. Again, if you guys have got any additional questions to ask, you can just send them to ask@thenavpeople.co.uk, and I'll be more than happy to answer any JET-related questions that come through. So there we go. Thanks very much for listening, and hopefully will be some more knowledge hours coming from us soon.